Some people move through life quietly. They don't cling. They don't chase. They don't panic when things change. At first, this looks like confidence. Then it starts to look unusual. They don't get overly excited. They don't fall apart when something ends. They don't build their identity around people, hobbies, or beliefs. This isn't emotional numbness. It's not arrogance. And it's not trauma, at least, not always. It's a psychological pattern few people recognize. Because when someone doesn't attach easily, they're not avoiding life. They're interacting with it differently. Most people believe attachment is natural. But psychology shows something surprising. Attachment is learned. We learn to attach to people for safety, to routines for stability, to identities for belonging. But not everyone learns this in the same way. Some people grow up understanding that change is constant, that nothing stays exactly the same, that certainty is an illusion. So instead of clinging, they adapt. Their mind doesn't ask, "How do I keep this forever?" It asks, "How do I stay steady if this disappears?" That question shapes everything. Emotionally unattached people rely on internal stability. They don't need constant reassurance. They don't need emotional feedback to feel okay. They don't outsource peace to others. This doesn't mean they reject connection. It means they don't depend on it. They know how to sit with discomfort, how to process emotions alone, how to regulate themselves without external support. To others, this looks like emotional distance. In reality, it's emotional independence. Why they don't chase passion or excitement. Some people chase intensity, high emotions, strong reactions, big feelings. Unattached personalities don't. They don't confuse stimulation with meaning. They don't confuse excitement with fulfillment. They prefer consistency over chaos, clarity over drama, depth over intensity. That's why they often appear calm, even in moments where others react strongly. Their nervous system isn't wired for extremes. You'll notice something else. They watch more than they act. They listen more than they speak. They think before they react. This isn't passivity. It's psychological distance. Distance creates perspective. Perspective creates understanding. When you're not emotionally attached, you see patterns others miss. This is why emotionally detached people often excel at analysis, strategy, and insight. Why relationships feel different to them. They care deeply, just not desperately. They don't try to possess people. They don't merge identities. They don't fear losing themselves in relationships. They value autonomy more than attachment, honesty more than comfort, respect more than reassurance. This can confuse partners who equate love with emotional intensity. But for them, love is calm, stable, unforced. People often project onto them. They don't care. They're emotionally cold. They are distant. But emotional restraint is not emotional absence. They simply don't externalize everything they feel. They process emotions privately, quietly, without needing validation. Their emotional world exists, just not on display. This psychology isn't perfect, because detachment can turn into isolation. They may struggle to fully open up. They may feel unseen. They may feel disconnected even in close relationships. Sometimes they wonder if they're missing something everyone else feels naturally. Not pain, not drama, but emotional surrender. When something ends, they don't collapse. They adjust. Because their identity isn't tied to outcomes. Their stability isn't tied to people. Their peace isn't tied to permanence. They expect change. That expectation makes them resilient. While others grieve the loss of certainty, they reorganize and move forward. They rarely feel the need to prove themselves. They don't chase approval. They don't compete for attention. They don't explain themselves excessively. Their confidence is quiet, not built on recognition, but on self-trust. They know they'll be okay, regardless of what happens. Not happier, more stable. Their happiness doesn't spike, but it doesn't crash either. They trade emotional highs for emotional balance. In a world addicted to intensity, this kind of calm feels unnatural, but it's sustainable. Some people aren't meant to attach deeply. They're meant to observe, to adapt, to move lightly through life. They don't cling to moments. They don't fear endings. They don't lose themselves in others. They aren't empty. They aren't broken. They're simply not owned by anything. And that may be the rarest psychology of all.